Hello YouTube, this is Dazza the cameraman. Today is Monday, April 29th at New Zealand time, and I'm pleased to have with me once again Samson Ite, or Steve. Welcome along, Steve.
Hello, mate.
Thank you for joining me. And also shortly we will be having Sean Hufford join us as well. I thought I'd just do this impromptu hangout to take a closer look at some of my recent images of ships apparently sinking. I posted a couple of videos. One of them was back on February 28th of this year. And following some comments by Anthony Liley, I've also been back to film some more, so we'll probably take a look at those as well. But first of all, just to set the scene, let's hand it over to Anthony Liley and hear his comments about this once again.
In the foreground, 8 miles away. Boat in the background is 12 miles away. And basically, if this was the curve of the Earth, we would all be able to repeat it very, very easily, very, very quickly. And it would be all the time. We would get it all the time. So it's clearly not the curve, because if it was, we wouldn't be on this side of the fence, would we? Let's be honest. If you could go to the beach and you could just do this over like time and time again, then you would perceive curvature, right? You would literally interpret that to be curve, and we would all get it over and over again.
Oh, do you mean like this, Anthony? Now, this little video goes out to Anthony Riley, who said, you know, if it was so easy, you should be able to go down to the beach any day and film ships being hidden by the curvature of the Earth. Well, Anthony, this one is for you as I slowly zoom in, step by step. And what are we seeing? Yes, I can go down to the beach any day if the conditions are clear enough. It's not hazy, so I can see far enough. As you can see, I've got good seeing conditions today. And what do we see? Ships apparently sinking as they're hidden by the curvature of the horizon. Not perspective, not magic bendy water as Liley would call it, but the curvature of the Earth. So that was on April 20, what did I say it was at the start? April 26th. That's right. And I've been back there again. And first of all, we're going to look at some earlier images, as I said, from February 28th. And just going back to Anthony Riley's comments at the start there, that, you know, if ships were really going over the curvature of the Earth, and remember when he was supposedly at Hoy Lake, but he was actually lay flat on his belly next to the New Brighton Lighthouse, which somehow he thought was at Hoy Lake, he actually filmed a ship heading off into the distance, and he made comments along the lines of, well, that's definitely showing curvature. That's definitely evidence for a globe Earth, and that's definitely sinking, and comments along those lines. I mean, he could see it himself. So, but in that earlier video, he said, well, you know, if anybody could go down to the beach and do this, then that would be evidence of curvature, and of course that's what I've been doing. Now let me just set the scene a little bit more. Of course, I live in Tauranga, New Zealand, in the Bay of Plenty, and these are the local Port of Tauranga webcams. So we've got a cargo port here, and they've got 6 webcams. This is Mount Maunganui. So the mountain is called Mount Maunganui, and the area, which is the peninsula attached to this mountain, is also known as Mount Maunganui as the area. So we're looking across to Mount Maunganui, this peninsula here. I live over on the Tauranga side, so we're looking across the harbour to Mount Maunganui. And then on the Mount Maunganui side, you've got a port there, and that's also looking over to Mount Maunganui, as is that one. This one here is actually looking back from the Mount Maunganui side back towards Tauranga, where they've got the container cranes. And some of you may have seen my time-lapse videos of the moonrise filmed through these container cranes, just to give it an interesting foreground. And this is on the Tauranga side, looking at the container crane operations there as they're unloading the ships. So what I do is basically, this is my window for looking outside, is that if I'm thinking about going out and filming some ships, I want to see what the weather conditions are like. So I look at these webcams and I look across here in the background behind the peninsula, and there is an island off in the distance called Mere Island. And we can also see it rather faintly there, okay? Now, from this camera that we're looking through, this webcam, Mere Island is 26 miles away. So if I'm seeing it nice and clear, then obviously we've got some pretty good visibility. Now, the other thing that I do is I go onto shipfinder.co and look at what's out there for the shipping. And with the port, which is down here, so this is the Tauranga side of the port where the container cranes are. This is the Mount Maunganui side, and they unload logs and fuel. They've got fuel storage tanks here, and yeah, other things that they unload along here. When it's cruise ship season, the cruise ships park along here. So each one of these yellow anchors is a ship that's berthed. And as we go out here, zoom out a little bit, we can see that there are also a number of other cargo ships waiting to come in. They're waiting for a berth to become available so that they can unload or load. And if it's an anchor, then obviously they're at anchor. If it's a ship, then it may be in transit, or it's maybe just stopped. This one is showing as at anchor. And you'll notice that on the right-hand side here, it says Sail Me in Google Earth. So if I hit that icon, it will actually download the GPS data for the journey of the ship and its current location. So what I do is whenever I'm filming, I download these GPS files and save them for the date that I've been filming. And the other thing I should point out while I'm here is this white one here is actually a beacon. It's a beacon, beacon A, I guess that means. And you can see all the details there. And once again, it's got the GPS data, which I've been able to download and save there. And so let's take a look at that in Google Earth. And there is a beacon, which I've imported there. And you can see that I've marked the positions of the different ships that I was filming on February 28th, which was a video that was the subject of some discussion by Anthony Liley. And Steve, can you remember who else it was that was discussing it?
Discussing the sinking ships.
Yeah, my video. I think it was Ranty, Ranty Flat Earth. Yeah. He had done a video about it, so I guess this hangout is a bit of a response to Ranty as well as Anthony Liley once again.
Because he likes to video a lot of sinking ships, doesn't he?
He likes to what? Sorry.
He likes to video a lot of sinking ships.
Does he actually film them, or was that a little bit of...
Well, from what I've heard, he does film a lot of sinking ships. Right,
okay. So this is my location on February 28th, 2019. This is at the Omanu Surf Club on Mount Maunganui Beach. And this is one of my favorite spots just because of the alignment to those ships at anchor is quite convenient. And we've got a nice access car park, but all my equipment in my vehicle there. I can just stop it and grab anything I need. Or I can go down onto the beach and film. There's a little access path down here. And when I'm filming, I'm normally probably about 30 feet above the water level. Now, notice I didn't say sea level, because that's an interesting thing that we really need to get our head around, is when we talk about sea level, what are we actually talking about? Because as far as I can tell, sea level normally refers, in most cases, to the average low tide. So we're not talking about the sea level on the day. We're actually talking about a particular datum that they use to reference the tide at that time. So your tide could be high or low, but it's not necessarily sea level as such. So we have to make reference to the actual height of the water. You're going to say something, Steve?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, I mean, a lot of guys, guessing sea level, just put it at their feet, which is wrong as well.
Yeah. Well, we all remember Anthony Liley claiming that he was 0.1 feet off the water when he said, I was lay flat on me belly. And as people have pointed out, if he was lay flat on me belly, then he must have been about 4 feet off the water, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, and then his dog went in front of his camera while he was taking some photos and video, which means that he must have the world's smallest dog, because the horizon was actually above the head of the dog. So if the horizon always rises to eye level, as claimed by flat earthers, which of course it doesn't, as can be easily demonstrated, then the horizon is pretty much straight out from us anyway when we're at near sea level. Even if you're at 6 feet above sea level, the dip to the horizon is negligible. So what you can do is you can use familiar objects such as somebody walking along the beach as a guide as to how far above sea level, or the water level at least, that you are. You can use the horizon and the distance above the person's head to actually work out how high your camera is. Yeah. And we'll look at some photos and so on where we see that anyway. So I guess what we need to do here is to look at some of the photos from April 28th. And let me just pull those up. Well, the other thing I was going to show too was about the sea conditions, but I'll come back to that. Okay, let me just pull this over. So I went to a couple of different locations. When I first started filming, I was actually down by the main beach, not at the location where I've just shown. And that is Kariwa Island, which was pointed out by Anthony Liley and I think also Ranty in their recent videos. And once again, as I point out, people down on the beach, you can see the height above their heads, the level to the horizon. That gives you some indication of how far above the water level that the camera is. And if you've got somebody standing at water's edge and you know that they're 6 feet tall, well, you can use their height to actually measure out how high you are.
Yeah.
So I took it. Sorry, Steve?
I was just agreeing, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So I took a number of photos there. And it's interesting here in this one, you can see that there's a sailing boat, which is clearly hidden. This seems to be a formation of rocks. Rather reminds me of the Sydney Opera House. And now is it this one here? There's an interesting one coming up, which I'm not sure if it's on this day or a different day. I think it's a different day. So again, that sailing boat is, and there's a slight bit of mirroring underneath there, as we can see there. And some of the shots, there's a little bit of mirroring. But obviously, I don't think the whole sailboat is going to be compressed into that tiny little bit there, is it?
No, definitely not.
No. Okay. And just on the left there, we can see the bow of another cargo ship at anchor there.
Yeah.
And so then I went across the road, because when I first started filming, I was actually down on the boardwalk, which was just behind this food caravan there. There's a wooden deck, and I was standing around about here, just behind it, with the tripod on the wooden deck. And I think I've got some photos too, but later on, that I took on my phone camera. Now, across the road from here, there is, this was like an amphitheater, and so you can climb up the hill. And so I headed up there halfway up, and I took some more photos to see what the elevation would do for me. And just while I'm here, notice this little caravan here and the height the top of the caravan in relation to the background there, the water and the beach, because later on as I go further higher up, you're actually going to see the difference that instead of the top being in the water here, it's actually below the level of the sand, as I recall. So let's zoom in. Okay, as we zoom in on that, it's getting a little bit blurry, but I do optically zoom in anyway. So an optical zoom there. Okay, and so now that I'm higher, what do we see? More of the sailing boat. Now the sailing boat hasn't actually moved, it's at anchor. But strangely,
it's further over the curve now.
Yeah, but strangely, because I'm up higher, we can see further over the curve, and we can see more of the sailing boat instead of just the top. I guess that's where the sail is packed away in there, isn't it?
Yeah, which is you know, pretty normal for the globe model.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and I think this is where I went higher up again. Yep. So looking at that caravan there, as I said, instead of the top of it being against the water now, it's actually against the sand. And so that's a wide shot just to set the scene. And zooming in again. And obviously that ship is quite close. That one's a bit further away. And look at our sailing ship. I'll zoom in on this previous one to start with. Now we can see more of the hull. How about that? Isn't that strange? Anybody would think that the Earth might be round.
Yeah.
So more elevation means that we can see further over the curve, exactly as expected. And again, there's a wide shot just to set the scene. Now, some people claim that, of course, that more zoom will bring an object up over the horizon, which I've demonstrated in a few videos now is absolute nonsense. Even in these images, we can see that.
Sorry, that's the most fakest statement I've ever heard.
Yeah, but I think that what some of the flat earthers are getting confused about in their ignorance is the difference between something being so far away that it's too small to see and something that's over the horizon. Because it's certainly true that with a powerful zoom or a telescope or a pair of binoculars, you can bring back into view something that is too far away visually to be seen.
Yeah,
that's not pulling it back up over the horizon, though, is it?
No, it's simply just giving you, you know, it's obviously improving your vision. Simply, you know, the human eye's only got so much. It can see in the distance, but a camera's got a bit more.
That's right, and it all comes down to angular resolution, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You can only see objects to a certain point, and you know, this is why we use magnifying glasses and microscopes and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's really no different. The zoom lens on a camera is basically just a magnifying glass. It's simply magnifying what is already there. It's not doing anything such as magically bringing ships back up over the horizon. As I've shown in my videos where I zoom in step by step optically and then compare the before and after with what we see, there is no difference in the amount or the proportion of the ship that is hidden compared to what we see above the water.
Yeah, I mean, and telescopes have been around for what, 2.5, 300 years. So everyone's been well aware of ships disappearing over the horizons for that long.
Mm.
You know?
So I pointed out Kariwa Island there, which features in the other videos that we'll be looking at. And this is Mere Island, which I was pointing out in the harbour webcams earlier on.
Yeah.
And there's Mere Island. Okay. Just a few shots there again before I headed back down below. And again, some scenery, just you can tell where I am from here if you use Google Street View or whatever. By the way, if anybody wants the Google files, I'm quite happy to send them to you so that you can scrutinize these images and my location and all of that. In fact, that's really all Anthony Liley and Ranty needed to do instead of going off half-cocked and making all sorts of assumptions and getting it wrong, because they did get it completely wrong.
Yeah.
You know, pointing out, making claims about what they thought I was filming, which was actually completely wrong. And I'm going to address that in this video. So I took a bunch of photos before I left, and then we ended up here. Now, why did I take this photo? Of course, to show exactly where I'm located, although I don't think Google Earth goes right into the, you know, the street view, goes right into the car park at Manu. I haven't really checked that, to be honest. But
Yeah.
that's to show where I am. And I'm above the water, and just a bit of a pan around there. Again, there is Kariwa Island. This is the same day. This is about 15 minutes after I left the last location, probably not even that. And again, we can check the time that I took the photos on the metadata for the photos. So this is a photo that I've obviously added the details to. You know, I've enhanced it to make it a little bit clearer as well. Okay, so that's the one without any enhancement and labels and with enhancement. Okay, and so with Anthony Liley's video, he claimed that I was looking at what he thought was Slipper Island. And we'll look at that in Google Earth in just a minute. But as other people also pointed out before I saw the video, it wasn't Slipper Island. In fact, it wasn't even an island at all. It was Pawanui, a mountain range behind Pawanui. And it's actually quite interesting, because as we look at that, I should point out that Pawanui is actually part of the mainland. But hang on a minute, it looks like an island.
Yeah.
Where's the rest of the land here? We can't see any land over here, but it's part of the North Island. And remember, I'm on the east coast, and we're looking north here. So where is the rest of the North Island north of me? Because there's nothing showing here, and there should be.
Yeah.
But it's below the curvature of the Earth, as is Princess Paula.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So while I've got that one up, I think this would be a good time to go back to Google Earth and take a look at that. So you can see my camera location marked there in the car park, and the sign and the rubbish bin and everything is just down in this corner here. Unfortunately, we can't rely on Google Earth. Down on the bottom right-hand corner, it says elevation 0 feet. It's certainly not 0 feet. It's about 30 feet. If this was 0 feet and the tide came in, then the surf would be washing over these houses. And that's obviously not the case at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So let's look at the, okay, there is a beacon, which we looked at earlier. So we're looking past that. There is Kariwa Island. And it's interesting that, now which one is it? A beacon and Kariwa Island. That one there. Okay. So that line there is pretty much in line with A beacon. And we see it in some of my photos that we can see A beacon against Kariwa Island from that location. So we've got the glorious Mahuta at 8.86 miles.
Yeah.
We've got the Tokyo Spirit 11.53 miles. We've got Princess Paula at 12.6 miles, which is this one here. And then we've got the Banon Kalon, if I'm saying it correctly, at 13.6 miles, basically. So we've got some reference points. And remember, I downloaded the GPS files from Ship Finder earlier on. So we've got the accurate location. Now, Liley and Ranty claimed that I was filming Slipper Island. So let's have a look at what I was actually filming. And it's Pawanui Peak, and I'll turn on that one and that one. So you can see that our line of sight is actually between Princess Paula and Tokyo Spirit. And we've got Glorious Mahuta in the middle there. So let's see if that agrees with what we're seeing here. Well, we got Tokyo Spirit, and we've got Glorious Mahuta, which is a closer one, and Princess Paula. So what do you reckon, Steve?
Yeah, I think, Riley obviously, you know, misunderstood the whole situation, didn't he? So.
Yep. Now, if I got a message from...
And that's putting it politely.
Okay, had a message from Sean. Unfortunately, he's not able to make it. So, you mind, sorry you can't join us, Sean, but maybe another time. Thank you. Okay, so here is our line onto our target, which is, in fact, Pawanui. This is Slipper Island over here.
Yeah.
Okay, so as best I could find, that is the peak. And as you can see, I've actually dropped the line down there. And that actually helps us see. I think I've got to turn on the other cross section that I've done. That one there. There we go. That helps us to see the actual terrain. And this is what Anthony Liley and Ranty Flat Earth are actually seeing in the photos, which they thought was Slipper Island. Now, interestingly, even though we see this peak on Pawanui, which is here, where is Slipper Island?
It's nowhere to be seen, is it?
In any of these other photos where I'm sort of panning around and looking in different directions and the wide shots and so forth, we don't see Slipper Island.
Yeah, it's invisible.
Yeah. And they made a big deal about the height of Slipper Island and all the rest of it, and saying, well, you know, the funny thing is, it's over the curvature of the Earth. Well,
Riley's got a problem with locations, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah, he does. He wouldn't know his Hoy Lake from his West Kirby, would he? Yeah. So that kind of backfired a little bit, but didn't it, Liley and Ranty? It sort of come back and bit you on the bum there, I think. Oh, yep, there's a closer look at those ships, which appear to be sinking. I mean, come on, guys. Look, where is the mirroring? There might be the slightest little bit of mirroring there. But the rest of that ship is not hidden in just a few little pixels of the image there, is it?
I don't know why they believe anything other than what their eyes are telling them there.
Yeah, because they don't want to believe.
No. Oh, no.
Yeah. So, you know, it doesn't matter how much you zoom in, you're not going to bring more of the ship up over the horizon. All you're going to do is magnify what's already there.
Yeah.
It's Mere Island. And again, from the same location up in the car park, you see some guys are surfing there. So, you know, they're down on the water basically on their surfboards, and you can see the height to the horizon. And even at 30 feet elevation, the dip to the horizon on a globe Earth is going to be negligible. So you might as well say it's at 0 degrees, and that's going to give you an indication of your height above the water.
Bear in mind, I've not seen many of Riley's videos, as I can't stand listening to his lies. But has he since that original Hoylick, has he actually used a camera for this purpose since? I've not seen anything.
Actually, to be frank, I can't recall that he has. But having said that, I've probably only really watched the videos that were particularly of concern to me, like where he was calling me out. And it's funny, you know, he's quite butthurt at the moment. We've been exchanging some emails backwards and forwards, and he keeps on saying, well, do your worst then, do your worst, I don't care. And there's been a few expletives and so forth thrown in. But, you know, he seems to forget the fact. He's butthurt because he says I'm calling him a liar and saying that he's dishonest when he's not. Well, I'm sorry, Anthony, but you are. And, you know, he's saying that I'm the one that's, you know, the antagonist or whatever. But he conveniently seems to forget that my original analysis video was posted in April of 2017. And where are we now? We're in April of 2019. And so I posted that video almost 2 years ago. This is the one where he filed a privacy strike with YouTube because I had recorded my analysis, which I did in a call to him over Skype. I recorded that analysis as he had requested a number of times previously. He made it very clear that he wanted my analysis recorded, and he made it clear that he wanted it done via Skype because he preferred Skype over the Google Hangouts because he said it was better quality, and he made it clear that he wanted it posted on YouTube. So I did exactly what he requested. I recorded it and I posted it on YouTube. But the thing is, I didn't tell him at the very start of it. I mean, I told him that here is my analysis, Anthony, but I didn't tell him that, oh, by the way, Anthony, I'm recording this as you had requested. I didn't tell him that for the very reason that I thought, well, if I actually tell him that I'm recording it as he requested, then I think that his response to my analysis would be rather different. Okay, so I just went ahead and recorded just to get his honest reactions, if you like, without the knowledge of the fact that I was actually recording it as he had requested. But the fact that he had requested it a number of times, that was permission enough for me. So anyway, he filed a privacy strike and managed to have the video removed from YouTube. Well, everybody had seen it. It had served its purpose, so I was happy to move on and let it be. And this was April of 2017. Well, blow me down. In February, or January rather, I think it was right at the end of January of this year, 2019, almost 2 years later, out of the blue comes a video from Anthony Liley called "The Cameraman Lied to the Ballers About Me." And he made that assertion in a couple of places in that hangout that he was doing, that I had lied about him. And in the description of that video, that it said that basically that I'd used overt dishonesty against him to, you know, try and discredit him, whatever. And then, of course, when I responded, I think he posted another video. Was that the one that was Dazza doubles down, dies a dastardly death, or something along those lines?
Yeah.
Which was hilarious. If you haven't seen it, please check it out on Anthony Liley's channel, because he really goes off on a rant. It was epic. You saw that one, didn't you, Steve?
Yeah. I've seen it. Yeah, if you've had it on your channel, I'd have seen it.
Yeah, it was hilarious. So check it out if you haven't. And then more recently, he posted another video calling me out to admit my dishonesty and all this sort of thing. But in fact, we've proven beyond any doubt whatsoever that Anthony Liley, none of his images were taken at Hoy Lake. They were all taken from New Brighton, every single one of them. And we know exactly where they were taken from, because Steve, my guest here, went to Hoy Lake and took some photos, and then he went to New Brighton. He went there, what, 3 times, 4 times?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I went a good few times. Yeah,
and took photos. And we actually pinpointed the exact locations where Anthony took his images, which he claimed, of course, were taken from Hoy Lake. And he's actually claimed at times that all of the images were taken from Hoy Lake. All of them, he said. He seemed to forget that he took those photos, the bulk of his photos, 60% of them, in fact, right next to the Perch Rock Lighthouse.
Yeah.
And where is that, Steve?
That's in New Brighton now.
It's in New Brighton. It's not in Hoy Lake, is it?
No, it's quite a distance from Hoy Lake.
Yeah. Can you see that lighthouse from Hoy Lake?
Not really. And probably if you went like 5 miles out on the beach, if you could
Right.
get that.
Right. But certainly not from the location. And then another lie that he told in messages between us and emails and via Skype was he stated that you know, he basically wasn't right up by the beach. He said the tide was out, and he said we drove deep down the beach and we took all of those images that day. Well, the problem is, of course, is that in his images that show the lighthouse, we can see that the tide, the water, is almost right up to the high tide line, the mark on the lighthouse. And even watching the local webcams, we can clearly see that when the tide is up at that height, there is no way that you can drive down the beach at Hoy Lake. It's impossible.
No.
So, you know, Anthony has been caught out in lie after lie after lie, and he doubles down, and he won't take his own advice.
No.
Yeah. His advice was that if you're wrong about something, just admit it, he says.
Yeah. I mean, as I was saying earlier, I don't particularly watch his videos, but from what I understand, he's not done any of this sort of photography pretty much since then. So my thinking there is that he doesn't possess a camera to do it.
Yeah, I think he does actually, and you know, his partner, I think she's quite into photography, so I think he has actually borrowed her camera.
Yeah, maybe so, but I mean, from what I understand, most of his distance type shot videos are with Ranty's camera.
Right. Okay. Well, that's interesting to know.
Yeah, it's just something to note. Maybe he doesn't. You know, he can't go back to New Brighton because he doesn't possess a decent camera.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay. All right, so I'll carry on with these images. Now, I noticed too that I wasn't presenting before, so I'll present it to everyone there so we're full screen. And so once again, looking at wide shot out the beach, you've got the surfies out there in the water, but we can see that there are some people actually standing on the water's edge there. And again, we can use their estimated height. There's a lady here. Let's assume she's 5 foot or 5'5", 5'6". We can estimate her height and work out our camera elevation up to the level of the horizon, because we're looking pretty much straight out to the horizon. So remember that all of these images were from the location that I've marked in Google Earth. Okay, and here are some shots of my setup. So this was at the first location that I was talking about, where I said that my camera was down by the boardwalk. So that is the wooden boardwalk that I was talking about.
Yeah.
So this is the P1000, which has kindly been loaned to me by Boaty McBoatface. And he's currently got my P900. He needed to take his camera to Australia with him, and then he realized that the occultation of Saturn was going to happen the day after he was due to leave. So he very kindly offered to take my P900 instead of his P1000, which was much appreciated. And you can see in the background there too that is that hill that I climbed up. You can see it's terraced.
Yeah.
So they used to have what was called the sound shell here for live shows and so on. Yeah. Back in the day, back in the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s, I think. And then this is at the second location. This is the car park where I filmed the main photos from, which we're looking at in Google Earth. And you can see the height of my camera there basically as well on the tripod. Now this is interesting too, because these are the sea conditions from the Port of Tauranga website. Now I've got a nifty little piece of software here, which I've got running on my computer 24/7, called Sequence Download. And it's downloading the images from the website. And I've got a few other sites that sometimes I download images from. It's downloading the images every 5 minutes, which is the time that they refresh the website anyway. And it's saving these images for me 24/7, including the sea conditions there. So on any of these days that I've been out filming, I can actually call up these images, which, as I say, 5 minutes apart, and check what the conditions were on the day.
Yeah.
And this was at 4:07 p.m. on 28th of February. And we can see that the tide was at 1.76 meters. So what's that in feet?
So it's 5 fortnights, something like that. Yeah,
times 3.3, isn't it? So that's about 5.8 feet by my calculations.
Yeah, okay.
Now, Ranty and I think Lily would have us all believe that the more distant ships we see in my photo were actually hidden behind some huge tsunami wave, tidal wave of water, called a oh hell, what did he call it? I've forgotten now. Can you remember the name of the type of tide? Maybe somebody in the chat can remember what it was.
No.
So with tides, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, does not go against his water always finds its level thing.
Yeah. Water always finds its level, except when it's inconvenient for us.
Yeah, except when it's covering a ship.
Yeah. So you know what he's actually talking about. There's some truth in it, because you know when you've got tides coming in, there is actually a slight bulge of water that sort of sweeps down shorelines and into bays and all that sort of thing. I mean, this is why tides in one location can be higher than another location.
Yeah.
Just because of the terrain and all of that sort of thing. I'm looking at the comments in the live chat, and no, it's not neap tide or tidal bore or anything. There's a sort of a technical name for it. And yeah, I mean, if you're gullible, you might accept Ranty's explanation of it, but obviously even Ranty didn't do his homework on it, because this information here, you notice I've got a red line around the box here. Notice what it says here, a beacon.
Yeah.
So that beacon, and I've got some close-up photos of it from when I was back at the location the other day. This is where they're measuring the tide height from, and the maximum wave height, significant wave height, the mean period, the tide. You've also got your wind, and so on. And then over here, you've got the entrance and the between Mount Maunganui and Marikana Island. This is where the cargo ships come through the entrance of the harbour. Okay, so they've obviously got a tide flow meter in there, and they're measuring that as well. So yeah, I'd like to know, Ranty, if you can explain to me how these rather large cargo ships can actually be hidden by a couple of feet of water. And let's face it, we're talking about normal tides. And as Steve pointed out, supposedly water always finds its level, except when it suits the flat earthers. And then we've got this enormous bulge, this tsunami wave of tide coming in, hiding these cargo ships. But in fact, we're only talking about a couple of feet of water. So maybe, Ranty, if you can explain to me how that works, I'd like to see a graphic on that. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, let's have a look at the other images. I think you can see I downloaded some photos of the actual ships that we were looking at. so that I could take out the background and overlay them on my photos to work out the difference in what we're seeing there. And this was the point in time too, by the way. I was there from about 4:07 to, I was there for about 10 minutes or so. And that red line that I've added to the tide information represents how long I was there for and where the tide was at. So Ranty and I think Liley claimed that the tide was coming in, but in fact the tide was, it was just past high tide and the tide was actually starting to head out.
Yeah.
All right.
Dazza, do you know the actual, I'm guessing, an average height of a ship's bow?
No, I don't. And it's something that I should actually do some research on. Do you know the answer to that, or you're asking me?
I'm only guessing from the ships I've seen, but I would guess at about 100 feet.
Yeah, I think it's probably something like that. I know in the past, what I've been doing is waiting for the cruise ship season, because the cruise ships tend to be around about 180 feet tall off the water. But being a port with cargo ships, particularly the big container ships that are coming in, I mean, some of these container ships are pretty much about the same size as the cruise ships.
Yeah.
They're huge. And so, you know, I think we're talking about at least 100 feet, you know, and even higher with the container ships. Probably some of them are 150, maybe 180 feet from the water to the top of the ship.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is why I don't pick on little pleasure craft, little boats and so on, bobbing around on the swells. I seem to recall seeing one video that claimed to show a boat being brought back up over the horizon with more zoom, when in fact all it was showing was a little pleasure craft bobbing up and down in the swell. Well, I can show that in my videos as well. I mean, it's no great surprise that if you've got a swell of a meter or two, then you're going to lose sight of the boat here and there. It's to be expected. Okay, and that's it on that file. So let's look at the other ones. So I was back there more recently. I think we've pretty much covered that. So it was actually Pawanui that we were looking at, not Slipper Island. And Slipper Island is not actually visible in the photos, funny enough, because it's over the curvature of the Earth. And we can see the alignment there absolutely pinpoints it as seen in my photos.
Yeah.
The earlier photo where I had all the ships labeled. And you can see Kariwa Island there as well. So no question there. Okay. And 26th of April, which is that one there. And let's pull those up. Okay, so you can see I've got the date and time there, and this is accurate to the second, by the way, because it was on the 24th of April that the occultation of Saturn by the moon occurred, and I made sure that the clock was set accurate to the second before I started filming, just so we could analyze the timings better. So there's a wide shot. This is actually the same location. I'll just have a look in Google Earth again so I can set the scene here. So we're actually at the same location, but just a little bit further along, because this is the surf club. So there is the car park. Let me turn off some of these markers. That's my position out in the car park from 28th of February. But this time what I did was I parked my car down here and I walked up to the surf club building and positioned myself just by the corner of the building here. So we're actually looking off in this direction here, as we can probably see in the photos. So I would be just under the eave of the building there. I was undercover. And you can just see the edge of the wooden deck there.
Yeah.
And I always like to get people, when they're walking along the water, as close to the water as possible, so that we can estimate the elevation of the camera based on their height. So here is a guy, let's assume he's 5'8". I mean, he's probably taller than that, but at least we can use his height to estimate the camera height. And, you know, I haven't specifically done it for these images, but let's take a rough guess and say maybe 30 feet like before. And again, what do we see? More sinking ships.
Sinking ships, yeah.
And what did Anthony say right back at the beginning? He said, you know, if you could go down to the beach any day and film ships sinking over the horizon, well, we would all be globe earthers, wouldn't we?
Well, I do, and do it every time I go to, you know, the seaside. I always see ships doing that, so I don't know why he thinks it can't be done.
Yeah. You mentioned to me before we went on air that you had some video. Did you want to share that, Steve?
Well, I can certainly show people it, yeah, and you'll have to guide me through it because I've never done that before.
Okay, so you're using two screens, aren't you?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you put your video over onto your second screen that you want to share, so you don't end up sharing the Hangout link and anything else that you don't want to share, then on the left-hand side, if you move your cursor on the left-hand side of the Hangout window, you will see pop out with a green box with a, let me just check that, green box with a white arrow pointing right, and that is screen share. So if you hit that button, it'll give you an option of which screen you want to share.
Okay.
And just while you're sorting that out, I'll just flick through some of these lovely photos of all that curvature and those ships sinking over the horizon. Look at that. Look at all that lovely curvature and all those flat earth tears. There's one for Soundly. Some flat earth tears to add to the cup. Just sing out if you need any help there, Steve, with that screen share.
Tell me again, because I can't find that green box.
Okay, so if you move your cursor around in our Hangout window,
Yeah.
okay, you should see a panel opens up on the left-hand side.
Screen share, yeah.
Yep, got it. Okay. I mean, there's no doubt that these ships are hidden by the horizon. How can anyone deny that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was actually there for a few hours. I actually got talking to a couple of people and ended up staying longer than I was going to, which was quite good because as the sun started setting, it actually improved the lighting for me because on this day it was a bit hazy. But look, I wanted to point this out as well. That is the beacon. That is where they're measuring the tidal height from and the air currents and all that sort of thing. And you can see that it is actually in line with Karewa Island there. So, and as I mentioned earlier, if anybody wants to scrutinize the Google Earth files, I'm more than happy to send them on and any images that they want as well. I've already had one request by email, and I've sent them on. So, yeah. Okay, are you ready to share, Steve?
I think so, mate. I think it's ready, yeah.
Okay, because I'm not seeing anything down in the preview, but I'll stop presenting and hopefully we should see yours. And okay, and I'm going to present you to everyone.
Okay.
Okay, you ready to go?
Yeah.
Fred Knotts wants to know if I called the Coast Guard for those poor people. I know, I think they all drowned. Okay, so we're seeing a little bit of mirroring in this one, but obviously all of, you know, the hidden amount is not going to be compressed into that little bit there.
No.
And you're looking through the wind turbines.
Yeah.
Yep. So some great footage here. So I wonder, next time you're out filming like this, maybe you can use Ship Finder as well and download the Google Earth files so you can actually work out exactly how far away the ship was and what it was and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Look, wow, look at that one. Oh, you can just, I can hear the hearts of the flat earthers breaking as I watch this footage.
Yeah, that's a flag on the front of that ship, isn't it? On the top there, I think.
Yeah. So where was this taken from, Steve?
I believe that was Hoylake.
Hoylake. Okay, great. And those black marks on the turbines, would that be the high tide mark?
Yeah.
Yeah. And as I recall from doing some research into the tides after the Anthony Liley debacle, I believe that the tides at New Brighton, or at least Blackpool, range in height by 32 feet.
Yeah.
Which is significantly more than they do here in Tauranga, New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's some pretty good footage you got there, Steve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, as them turbines get further out, you can see the tide looks like it's higher on those turbines. Or at least them turbines are lower behind the curve.
Yeah, that would be it. Because they're further away.
Yeah.
And of course, the further away they are, the more that's compounded because of the ever-increasing curvature.
Yeah. Some mirror in that.
Yeah, but even with a little bit of mirroring at the bottom, there's no way that all of the ship is going to be compressed down into such a tiny little amount.
Yeah.
But they will call it, you know, atmospheric lensing and looming, and they talk about refraction or bendy light whenever it suits, you know. It's like with Anthony Liley, he dismisses refraction as being bendy light. He mocks it, but, you know, all of a sudden it's actually refraction when it suits him.
Yeah.
Good morning, Dick Holman. Thank you for joining us. When was this taken, Steve?
I think this was July last year.
Uh-huh. And you were saying to me the other day, you're talking about the visibility and the weather, so you're sort of coming up to a time now where conditions are likely to improve.
Yeah, it's obviously springtime. It's not much good, but come height of summer, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Fred Knotts asks, so why didn't Anthony get those shots of the turbines from Hoylake? Oh, right, he says. Yeah, I think we all know why.
Yeah, he wasn't there.
Yeah.
So you can see there that, you know, some of the ships are pretty well sunk.
Yeah. Yep, they're sunk in all those flat earth tears, the ocean of flat earth tears. Okay. Okay, have you got any other videos that you wanted to share, Steve?
I'll just have a look, actually.
Yeah. If you can make sure that your Hangout window's on the on your other screen, that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, ready to go again?
Are
you looking for them? Okay.
Yeah, just bear with us.
I'll share my screen again until you're ready to go.
Okay.
That one there. Share and present. Okay. So back to my shots from the 26th of April, just the other day. And again, there's Kariwa Island. It's very distinctive.
The only stuff I've got here is Blackpool Tower from Hoylake, I think.
Mm-hmm. So this was an interesting shot. I didn't even notice this ship earlier on because this was so far away. I couldn't see it with my eyes. But I saw this cargo ship coming in. And when I was zooming into that, I saw this little white thing glinting in the distance. So I zoomed in. And I don't even know what ship this was because it didn't seem to show up on the ship finder. So I couldn't download the Google file for it.
Yeah.
It obviously didn't have the necessary transponder on it to broadcast its position there. But, you know, again, plenty of hidden ships there. And Paua Nui is sort of lost in the haze there a little bit. But I was saying that I stayed longer and things actually got quite interesting as the sun was setting, because it sort of lit up the background sky and made it easier to see, as we can see here.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Have I got a shot with that, with the beacon? Here it is. Okay. I was just looking at this in relation to the beacon, so you can see the channel where the ships actually come through there. There is that A beacon I showed in Google Earth and Kariwa Island. And then in the next shot, so I think the ship is on this side of the beacon there. Yeah. I guess that's the beacon there, or is that part of the ship? Hard to say. Okay, have you got a video ready to go, Steve?
Well, I've only got the Blackpool videos if they're any interest.
What do you think? I can share your screen if you want. Your call.
Let me just have a quick glance.
Okay, well, you have a look and I'll keep going through some of these.
I mean, it is not relevant to ships on the horizon, you see, that's what I'm thinking. But I mean, there's the Blackpool firework video, stuff like that. Which just gives you an idea of what you're seeing of the tower.
Yeah.
So, your call, mate.
Here we go with the real sort of sunset kicking in there. The conditions were rather hazy. I mean, I could tell it when I looked at the webcams and could see that Mare Island was rather hazy in the distance. But we had such a great lineup. And even still now, as I go back to the ship finder and have a look at that, we can see there's one. Is there any more there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ships out there at the moment. These ones are out in front of me, and these are the ones that are sort of lined up in the distance. So it's quite good having them all in a row like that, because take a line back to my location, we're looking down the barrel of the gun, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I'm just looking at the chat. Are there any questions or comments that people want to make? And then I'll hand over to Steve to so we can have a look at some of those Blackpool images before we close out. But there we go, Anthony Liley and Ranty Flat Earth. If you want the information on the locations of the boats and the line through to Paua Nui, or what you thought was Slipper Island, I'll be happy to send it to you. In fact, it probably would have been better for you if you had asked in the first place. I would have been happy to send it to you instead of you embarrassing yourselves and making an ass out of yourselves with your assumptions. It's better to get your facts right before you go off half-cocked and make all sorts of claims that end up biting you on the backside. So, yeah. All right, Steve, I'll stop presenting and hand back to you.
Okay.
So when you're ready to screen share, I'll present you.
Yeah, go on.
Okay. You're ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm presenting you, but I'm not seeing your screen. Are you sharing?
Okay, sorry, bear with me. Yeah.
Yeah, you want to hide that one?
It's okay. I'm not showing anything, am I? I don't think.
No, no.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, do you want to maximize that window and put it in theater mode or full screen or whatever?
Yeah. See it?
There we go. That's better. Yeah, awesome.
Just say one.
Yep, when you're ready to go. So we're seeing the wind turbines here. Oh, this one we could see the fireworks looking towards Blackpool.
Yeah.
Right. And that really helps to see just what's going on with the horizon.
You can see the horizon is around about there because you're getting the mirror of the fireworks. So you've got not much of the tower shown, really.
So that's Blackpool Tower on the left. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And this was taken from Hoylake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can see where the mirror of the fireworks is there. So you can get an idea that the horizon is actually about there. Take that over to the tower. You're not seeing much of the tower, really. There's the triangle part there.
Yeah. Yeah. I might be mistaken. I think the horizon is the actual water horizon that we see, but then there's a sort of a mirror layer sitting on top of it. It's just like how, you know, you see a reflection on the road on a hot day.
Yeah.
And you see car headlights and so on being reflected on the road, apparently as if it's got water on it. I think it's the same thing that we're seeing there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, of course, Anthony Liley says that you shouldn't be able to see Blackpool Tower from Hoylake. But when we actually do the calculations and do them properly, unlike Anthony's doing, and allow for the proper elevation of the observer and the proper elevation of Blackpool Tower, which, by the way, although Blackpool Tower is 518 feet high, it's actually sitting at 39 feet above sea level.
Yeah.
He would have us believe that Blackpool Tower is basically sitting on the water line, okay? And as I mentioned, you know, sea level, you have to actually understand what sea level means. And sea level is normally the lowest average or the average lowest tide. And the range in height at Blackpool is actually 32 feet, as I recall, from lowest tide to highest tide is 32 feet.
Yeah.
So if Blackpool Tower was basically sitting elevation, well, it would the ballroom and everything would be flooded, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Every high tide, it would be flooded.
Yeah, exactly.
So again,
when I started that video, it was the tide was quite low, but I stayed there for about 5 hours that night and stayed until the early hours in the morning. And that is the last image that I got of the tower, which was there, just showing the triangle looking rather stretched, but you know, basically just see the top.
Yeah, and again, you know, refraction and looming and all that sort of thing, they don't exist except when it really suits the flat earthers, and then of course they do exist, which is a curious thing.
You can see the difference when the tide is on its way in. Yeah, I'll go back to you now, mate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I think I'll just hand over to chat for a few minutes. Normally I'm sort of so focused on doing the Hangout and I don't multitask too well. So if there's any comments or questions or feedback from the live chat, I'd be happy to answer any questions about photos or anything else before we close out. As I say, it's a good opportunity for me being so close to the beach and the port. It's only about a 10 or 15 minute drive for me to get over there and take some footage. And I've got the port webcams available to check the visibility. Just looking out to Mere Island to see how clear it is. And yeah, as Anthony said, if people could just go down to the beach any day and take photos of ships disappearing over the horizon, we would all be globe earthers, wouldn't we? Well, guess what, Anthony? Maybe you should pick up your missus' camera and go down and film some more ships and do it honestly.
Or actually get a P900 or P1000 and do it.
Yeah. Do you remember he said that he had that that lens attachment, which was, I think he said it was like a 5,000mm lens.
Whatever that was. I mean, he got really poor images from it anyway.
Yeah. I mean, that was hilarious. The new P1000, of course, is equivalent of a 3,000mm lens, and he would have us believe he had this 5,000mm lens, which would be enormous. How do you not stay on the beach all the time living that close? Well, I guess if I was a surfer, I'd probably be there all the time. It's a beautiful place to live. And I'm really lucky to live here. I've lived here all my life, and it's certainly a beautiful location with lovely beach and everything. Hey, Jose, good to see you. He says, can you take footage from at least 2 feet above the water, then go higher and take footage of the same? That is cool and solid evidence. Yes, I can do that, and that's something that I plan to do more of. Particularly as the conditions improve as well. And I did sort of touch on that towards the beginning of this Hangout, because the location where I started, I actually went up in the hill behind me and filmed. There's a sailing ship which we could only see the masts of, but when I went up on the hill, we could clearly see the rest of the sailing boat. So that's good. Jose, go ahead, Steve.
Sorry, can I just say I did that at Hoylake, but I didn't video it. I walked out to the water, which was low tide at the time, and you can basically see some land at Formby. But the more I walked out, that land completely disappeared behind a wall of sea. As I walked out, it took me about 45 minutes on that walk, and so I went out about 1.5 miles.
Yeah.
And Formby completely disappeared.
Right. Yep. Now, Jose says at least 2 to 3 feet to avoid excuses about waves blocking stuff. And yeah, I mean, that's a very good point. And this is why I deliberately choose to film from a location that is sufficiently high above the water that there can be no excuses whatsoever about waves blocking my view to cruise ships and huge cargo ships. I mean, the notion is just ridiculous. And so is Ranty Flat Earth's notion that my view was blocked by the incoming tide. That's just nonsense. Now, I'd like to give a shout out to Jose Gonzalez and his channel. He's got some excellent videos on his channel showing clear evidence, proof, in fact, of the curvature of the Earth. If you haven't seen his videos, you really need to go and check them out. I've done a couple of videos reviewing them, and I'd like to do some more analysis on those as well, because you've got some great filming opportunities there, Jose, and you've used them well. Astro Rex says that waves can block out the sun. Yeah, I guess if you're down low enough, because the angular size of the sun is only half of 1 degree, if you're down low enough, they will certainly block out the sun. And you're welcome, Jose. Okay, so I think we might wind it up. We've been going for almost an hour and a half, I think. So thank you, Steve, for joining me again. It's been a pleasure, and you've got some great footage there. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, no worries.
And I think you've got some plans to head back and get some more footage looking towards Blackpool Tower through those wind turbines. Is that correct?
Yeah, as soon as we get some good visibility, I will. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd been watching the local webcams as well, checking on Anthony Riley's claim that he had driven down the beach at low tide. And after watching those webcams for several days, it soon became very clear to me that with the tide as high as it was against the lighthouse at New Brighton, as shown in his video and photos, there is no way at all that he could have driven down the beach as he claimed subsequently to cover his backside with the when the truth was coming out about his location. I will be following up as well with some more videos about that. I've started another video which I'm editing, so there's some more heat to go on Anthony Riley yet, because if he wants to call me out and call me a liar, then he can face the heat, and I'll call him out for telling pork pies, as he would say over in the UK.
Yeah.
Okay, so thanks, Steve, once again, and thank you to everybody in the chat for joining us. Until next time, this is Dazza the cameraman, and good night.